My husband burst into our tiny apartment, waving a letter in the air, his eyes wild with greed. "I'm rich," he screamed. "Grandpa Earl died and left me everything. Pack your bags, Maya. I don't need a deadweight wife dragging me down anymore." He kicked me out into the snow that same night. I signed the divorce papers without a fight, too broken to argue. But a week later, when we sat in the lawyer's mahogany office for the reading of the will, my husband fell to his knees and started to scream. Welcome to our channel. Before we dive into this story of ultimate karma and justice, tell me in the comments, have you ever had to rebuild your life from scratch when you thought you had lost everything? I read every single one. The alarm buzzed at 5:30 a.m., a harsh, grating sound that seemed to rattle the thin walls of the basement apartment. Outside, the Chicago winter was in full force. The wind howled down the alleyway, rattling the frosted window pane. Maya reached out a trembling hand to silence the clock, careful not to shift the mattress too much. If she woke Marcus, he would be in a foul mood for the rest of the day. She slid out from the warmth of the duvet, shivering violently as her bare feet hit the cracked linoleum floor. The heating in their unit had been broken for 3 days. The landlord, a slumlord who only took cash, had promised to fix it next week. In the bathroom, the fluorescent light flickered and hummed before buzzing to life, casting a sickly green glow over the room. Maya looked at herself in the chipped mirror. She was 32, but the face staring back looked a decade older. Deep purple circles bruised the skin under her eyes. Her lips were chapped from the dry, cold air. Her hair, which used to be thick and shiny, was pulled back into a frayed, messy bun, needing a trim and treatment she couldn't afford. She splashed ice-cold water on her face, gasping at the shock. It was the only way to wake up. She couldn't afford the good coffee anymore, the kind that actually had caffeine. So she relied on the cold water and willpower. "You making noise again?" Marcus's voice groaned from the bedroom, muffled by the pillow. "I have to get to the clinic by 8, Marcus," Maya whispered, pulling on her thick wool sweater over her scrubs. It was itchy, but it was warm. "Go back to sleep." "How am I supposed to sleep with you stomping around like an elephant?" he grumbled, rolling over and pulling the blanket up to his chin. Maya sighed, a puff of white breath visible in the freezing air. 5 years ago, when they first moved in together, Marcus would wake up with her. He'd brave the cold kitchen to make her toast. He'd kiss her forehead and tell her she was the hardest working woman he knew. He'd say, "We're building a life, baby. Just you wait." Now, her very existence seemed to annoy him. Her breathing was too loud. Her footsteps were too heavy. Her paycheck was too small. She made a cup of instant coffee using tap water she microwaved. The kettle had broken last month and they hadn't replaced it, and ate a piece of dry toast while standing over the sink to catch the crumbs. She was out the door by 7 a.m., wrapping a scarf around her face to brave the biting wind as she walked to the L train. Maya worked as a senior administrator at a busy, underfunded community medical center. It was a thankless, grueling job. She spent 8 hours a day getting yelled at by patients who were in pain, arguing with insurance companies who didn't want to pay, and trying to organize the chaotic schedules of overworked doctors. She brought home about $2,800 a month after taxes. In a city like Chicago, that was poverty wages, but it was the only steady income they had. Marcus was a visionary. That's what he called himself. For 3 years, he had been unemployed by choice. He refused to work for the man. He had been chasing get-rich-quick schemes with a religious fervor. First, it was cryptocurrency. He drained $5,000 of their savings, money Maya had put aside for a dental surgery she needed, and bought obscure coins that crashed to zero in a week. Then it was drop shipping. He filled their tiny living room with cheap plastic phone cases from overseas that no one wanted to buy. They were still stacked in boxes against the wall, gathering dust. Then it was a mobile car wash app. He paid a developer $2,000 to build a prototype that never worked. Every cent they saved went into his investments. He contributed maybe $500 a month on a good month, usually by selling old electronics or doing odd jobs for his friend Leo. "I'm building an empire, Maya," he'd say, whenever she gently suggested he get a part-time job at the warehouse or driving Uber. You have to spend money to make money. You don't understand leverage. Look at Elon. Look at Bezos. They didn't clock in at 9 to 5. So Maya worked. After her shift at the clinic ended at 5 p.m., she came home, cooked dinner, cleaned the mess Marcus had made during the day, and then sat down at her small desk in the corner to do freelance data entry until midnight. She paid the rent. She paid the electric bill when she could. She bought the groceries. And she funded Marcus's dreams. That side gig brought in another $1,500 a month. It was just enough to keep them from being evicted. Just enough to keep them afloat. The day was a blur of ringing phones, coughing patients, and mounting paperwork. By the time she got home at 9 p.m., carrying heavy grocery bags that cut into her fingers, her back was screaming in protest. The apartment was a disaster zone. Dirty dishes were piled high in the sink, remnants of a lunch Marcus had made for himself. Takeout containers, which he must have bought with the emergency cash card, littered the coffee table. Marcus was on the couch, headphones on, glued to his laptop. He was playing a video game. "You're late," he said, not looking up, his eyes tracking a digital enemy on the screen. The train was delayed. Someone pulled the emergency brake, Maya said, her voice thick with exhaustion. She put the bags down on the counter. She started washing the dishes he'd left, the hot water soothing her frozen hands. "You missed the game. It was crazy. Leo came over," he said. "Marcus, did you apply for that warehouse job I sent you? The one paying $22 an hour?" she asked quietly, scrubbing a pot. He slammed the laptop shut, ripping his headphones off. "I told you, I'm not working in a warehouse, Maya. Do you think I'm a peasant? I'm a CEO. I'm on the verge of a breakthrough. My partner, Leo, found an angel investor for the NFT project. I need to be ready. I can't be lifting boxes when opportunity knocks." A breakthrough. She'd heard that word 1,000 times. It was his favorite word. It meant, "Give me more money." She finished cleaning the kitchen, heated up a can of soup for herself, and sat at her small desk in the corner to start her second job. "You really let yourself go," Marcus commented from the couch, looking at her worn-out leggings and the hole in her sock. "You used to be hot, Maya. Now you just look tired. You should hit the gym. Look at Leo's wife, Tasha. She's tight. She takes care of herself." Maya didn't respond. She just typed faster, the rhythmic clack, clack, clack of the keyboard masking the sound of her sniffling. Tears stung her eyes, hot and salty. She couldn't afford a gym membership. She couldn't afford time. She couldn't even afford to fix the hole in her sock. Spring came, melting the snow into gray slush, but the cold remained in their apartment. The distance between them grew into a chasm. Marcus started spending nights at the office, Leo's basement. He put a passcode on his phone. He started smiling at text messages he wouldn't show her. Maya suspected he was seeing someone else, maybe Tasha's sister, who always hung around Leo's house, but she was too exhausted to fight it. She was in survival mode. Then, on a rainy Tuesday in May, everything changed. Maya came home early. The clinic's system had crashed, and they sent the admins home at 4 p.m. She walked in, expecting to find Marcus asleep or gaming. Instead, she found him pacing the living room, a wild, manic energy vibrating off him. He wasn't looking at his laptop. He was holding a letter, the envelope torn open on the floor. "What's going on?" she asked, dropping her umbrella. He spun around, grinning. Not a happy grin, a hungry one, a predator's grin. "Grandpa Earl died," he said. Maya froze. Earl was Marcus's grandfather, a recluse who lived in Indianapolis. They hadn't seen him in years. He was a hard man, strict and old-fashioned, but he had always been kind to Maya during the one weekend they visited. "Oh, Marcus, I'm so sorry," she said, reaching for him, her instinct to comfort him kicking in. He stepped back, dodging her hug. "Don't be. He was 90. He lived forever. But here's the kicker. The lawyer called. I'm in the will." "A will?" "Yes. He left an estate, a massive one. Apparently, the old miser was sitting on a gold mine, an apartment downtown, a lake house in Michigan, a stock portfolio. The lawyer said it could be millions. Millions, Maya!" He rubbed his hands together, practically vibrating. "Finally, I knew it. I knew I was destined for this. The universe is finally paying me back. I'm going to buy a Range Rover. I'm getting a penthouse in the Loop. No more of this rat hole." He gestured around their apartment with disgust. He didn't mention the funeral. He didn't mention sadness. He didn't share a single memory of the man who raised him when his parents died. He only mentioned the money. "We should go to the funeral," Maya said softly. "We need to pay our respects." "Aunt Sarah is handling that." Marcus waved a hand dismissively. "She loves that sentimental crap. I have a meeting with the lawyer on Thursday, the reading of the will. That's the important part. I need to be there to claim what's mine." He spent the next 2 days in a frenzy. He stopped hiding his phone. He was calling car dealerships, real estate agents, travel agents. "Yes, I'm a cash buyer," she heard him say on the phone. "Price isn't an issue. I want the best." He called his friend Leo. "I'm rich, baby. I'm finally rich. We're going to Vegas, first class, strippers, bottle service, the works." He never said "we" when talking to Maya. He never said, "Maya, we can pay off your student loans," or "Maya, we can fix your teeth." It was always "I." On Thursday morning, Marcus was up at 6 a.m. He showered, shaved, and put on his only suit, a cheap polyester one he'd bought for a court date years ago. He looked at himself in the mirror, preening, fixing his tie. "Do I look like a millionaire?" he asked, winking at his reflection. "You look nice," Maya said, sipping her coffee. She felt a heavy stone in her stomach. "Do you want me to come? For moral support?" He looked at her, really looked at her, with cold, assessing eyes. He looked at her frayed bathrobe, her messy hair, her tired face. "No," he said. "This is family business. Vance family only. You stay here." He left without a kiss. He took the credit card, the one Maya had just paid off, to buy lunch. Maya went to work, but her stomach was in knots. She couldn't focus. She texted him at lunch. "How did it go?" No reply. She texted him at 5 p.m. "Are you okay?" Nothing. She got home at 7. The apartment was empty. She waited. 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. At 10:30 p.m., the door opened. Marcus walked in. He wasn't smiling. He looked powerful, dangerous. He had a bottle of expensive champagne in one hand and a lit cigar in the other. He smelled like smoke and arrogance. "Well?" Maya asked, standing up. "It's better than I thought," he said, throwing his keys on the table. "The apartment is worth $800,000. The lake house is another $500, plus cash, bonds, and a diversified portfolio. The total valuation is over $2.5 million. "Oh my God," Maya breathed, sitting down hard. "Marcus, that's life-changing. We can do so much." "Yeah," he said, popping the cork on the champagne. It flew across the room and hit the wall. He took a swig straight from the bottle. "It is." He walked to the window and looked out at the dirty alley, as if he were surveying a kingdom he had just conquered. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, Maya, about my future, about where I'm going, about the kind of man a multimillionaire needs to be." "And?" Maya asked, her voice trembling. He turned to face her. His eyes were dead. "And you're not part of it." The room went silent. The hum of the refrigerator seemed deafening. The smell of the cigar smoke choked the air. "What?" Maya whispered. "I want a divorce," Marcus said. His voice was steady, practiced. He had rehearsed this on the drive home. "We're done. I'm moving up in the world, Maya. I'm going to be a player. And let's be honest, you don't fit. You're a drag. You're small time. You're a worker bee. I need a queen. I need a woman who matches my new status. Someone like Leo's sister-in-law. Someone with class." "We've been together 5 years," she said, tears spilling over. "I supported you. I paid for everything. I fed you when you had nothing. I believed in you when no one else did." "And I appreciate that," he said dismissively, taking another drink. "Really, thanks for the groceries. But that was your choice. Nobody forced you to be a martyr. Look, I want this clean. I don't want to fight. I packed your bags." He pointed to the hallway. Maya looked. Her beat-up suitcase and 2 black, heavy-duty trash bags were sitting by the door. You packed my bags?" "Yeah," While you were at work. I threw your clothes in there, your books, whatever junk was in the bathroom. I filed the papers this morning with a lawyer I hired. Expedited. It's a no-fault divorce. You sign, you leave, we're done. I don't want you claiming any of my inheritance. My lawyer said if we divorce now, before the funds transfer, you get nothing. Maya looked at the bags. She looked at the man she had loved, the man she had sacrificed her youth and her health for. She saw the stranger wearing his face. She didn't cry. The shock was too great. It was like a physical blow that numbed her nerves. She felt detached, floating above the room. "Where do I sign?" she asked. Marcus blinked. He had expected a fight. He had expected begging. He had wanted her to beg so he could reject her again. "Here," he said, handing her a clipboard from his bag. She signed, Maya Lynn. She didn't even use his last name. "Good," he said, snatching the papers. "Now get out. I have people coming over to celebrate. Leo, Tasha, some girls. I don't want you here bringing down the vibe." "You're kicking me out tonight? In the middle of the night?" "My house, my rules. I paid the deposit on this place, remember? 5 years ago. It's in my name. Go find a shelter. Go to your friend Chloe's. I don't care. Just go." Maya picked up her bags. One of the trash bags ripped, spilling her books onto the floor. She knelt down, gathered them up, and clutched them to her chest. She walked to the door. She turned back once. "Goodbye, Marcus," she said. He was already texting, a smirk on his face, the champagne bottle dangling from his hand. "Bye, Plain Jane. Don't let the door hit you." Maya walked out into the cool night. She dragged her suitcase down the stairs. She sat on the curb, the wind biting through her thin coat. She called her friend Chloe. "He kicked me out," she choked out, the sobs finally coming. "He got the money and he kicked me out. I have nowhere to go." "Oh my God," Chloe said immediately. "Stay there. I'm coming to get you. I'm 5 minutes away." For 3 days, Maya laid on Chloe's couch, staring at the ceiling. She felt hollowed out, used, discarded like a wrapper. She replayed the last 5 years in her head, looking for the moment she should have left. There were so many. She didn't eat. She barely slept. She felt like her life was over. Then, on the 4th day, her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. She thought it might be Marcus calling to mock her. "Maya Vance?" a deep, authoritative voice asked. "Yes," she croaked. "This is Arthur Sterling, attorney at law. I represent the estate of Eustace Vance. I need you to come to my office immediately." Maya sat up. We're divorced, or in the process. It has nothing to do with me. Marcus said I get nothing." "Mr. Vance says a lot of things," Mr. Sterling said, his voice dry, "but he does not dictate the law. This has everything to do with you, Mrs. Vance. Please, 4 p.m. today. It is a matter of extreme urgency." Maya borrowed a blazer from Chloe. She brushed her hair. She put on a little makeup to hide the dark circles. She took the bus to the Loop, Chicago's business district. The law office was intimidating. Mahogany walls, leather chairs, the smell of old money. When she walked in, Marcus was already there. He was wearing a new suit, a flashy, ill-fitting gray one with the price tag still tucked in the sleeve. He was sitting with an older woman, Aunt Sarah, Eustace's sister. Marcus looked at Maya with disgust. "What is she doing here?" he shouted at the receptionist. "I told you, we're divorced. She's a stranger. She's trying to mooch off my money." "Sit down, Mr. Vance," Mr. Sterling said sharply, walking out of his inner office. He was a tall man with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "In my office, you will be respectful." Maya sat in the chair furthest from Marcus. She kept her eyes on the lawyer. "I called you both here because there is a stipulation in the last will and testament of Eustace Vance that I was legally bound to withhold until the divorce papers were filed or a specific time period had passed," Mr. Sterling said. He sat behind his massive desk and adjusted his glasses. He looked from Marcus to Maya. Eustace Vance was a very observant man. He was old, but he wasn't blind. He visited you 2 years ago, remember? Maya nodded. "Yes, he stayed for 3 days. I made him oatmeal every morning." Marcus rolled his eyes. "Yeah, he stayed for a weekend. He slept on the couch. So what? I let him stay, didn't I?" "He saw things," Aunt Sarah spoke up. Her voice was cold, trembling with suppressed anger. She looked at Marcus like he was a stranger. "He saw how you treated her, Marcus. He saw her working 2 jobs while you played video games. He saw you yell at her for burning the toast. He saw you take money from her purse when you thought no one was looking." "He was old," Marcus snapped. "He didn't understand the hustle. He didn't understand modern business." "He understood character," Mr. Sterling said, his voice cutting through the room like a knife. "And he understood value. I will now read the addendum to the last will and testament, drafted 2 weeks after that visit." He cleared his throat and picked up a heavy document. "To my grandson Marcus, I leave my entire estate, valued at approximately $2.5 million. Marcus grinned, leaning back in his chair, putting his hands behind his head. "See, I told you. Can we go now? I have a realtor waiting." "However," Mr. Sterling raised his voice, silencing him, "this bequest is conditional. It is a test of character." Marcus sat up. "What test?" "Marcus must be legally married to Maya Vance at the time of distribution and for at least 1 year following my death. If Marcus divorces Maya or treats her with proven cruelty, or if they are separated at the time of probate, the entire estate shall bypass him." The room went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. Marcus's face went pale. His mouth opened and closed like a fish. "What? That's not legal. You can't do that." "It is perfectly legal," Sterling said smoothly. "It's a conduct clause. Eustace wanted to ensure that the woman who supported his grandson was taken care of. He wanted to see if you would stay with her once you thought you had money. He predicted you would leave her the moment you got a taste of wealth." Sterling turned the page. "If this condition is met, if the marriage is dissolved by Marcus, the entire estate, every penny, every property, every stock, is to be transferred immediately to Maya Vance, for she was the only one who showed me kindness without expecting a reward, and the only one who knows the value of hard work." Maya gasped. Her hands flew to her mouth. "Me? No." Marcus stood up, knocking his chair over. "No, that's a lie. I'm the blood relative. She's nobody." "You are the disinherited relative," Sterling said, closing the folder. "You filed for divorce 4 days ago. You expedited it. The decree was granted yesterday. You made sure it was fast so she wouldn't get anything. You played yourself, Mr. Vance. You walked right into the trap your grandfather set for you." I didn't know," Marcus stammered. He looked around the room wildly. He looked at Aunt Sarah, who refused to meet his eyes. He looked at the lawyer, who looked bored. Then he turned to Maya. The look in his eyes changed instantly. The arrogance vanished, replaced by a desperate, oily charm. He looked like a man drowning. "Maya, baby," he said, dropping to his knees, literally on the expensive Persian carpet. He crawled toward her. "Maya, listen. I was stressed. I didn't mean it. I was having a breakdown. The pressure, it got to me. You know I love you. You know I'd never really leave you." He grabbed her hand. His palms were sweaty and cold. He tried to kiss her fingers. "We can fix this. We can remarry, right now. We'll go to the courthouse. I'll rip up the papers. It'll be like it never happened." "The condition is broken," Sterling interjected without looking up. "Remarriage won't change the will. The asset transfer has already been initiated. The money is hers." "Then give it to me," Marcus screamed, his face twisting into ugly rage. He shook her hand violently. "It's mine. You can't steal my family's money. Give it back. You're a thief." "Get off me," Maya said, her voice quiet but firm. She pulled her hand away and stood up. "Maya, please, I'm begging you. I'm nothing without this. I have debts. I promised investors. I borrowed money from bad people, Maya. They'll kill me." He was crying now, ugly, snotty tears streaming down his face. He looked pathetic. "I'll do anything. I'll be your servant. Just take me back. Share it with me. 50-50. Please, for the sake of what we had." Maya looked down at the man on his knees. She looked at the man who had called her a plain Jane, the man who had packed her life into trash bags, the man who had laughed when she left. She waited for the love to come back. She waited for the pity. But she felt nothing. The anger was gone. The sadness was gone. The tether that had bound her to him for 5 years had snapped. "You're right, Marcus," she said, her voice steady and cool. "You are nothing, but not because of the money, because of who you are. You had a choice. You chose greed. Now live with it." She turned to Mr. Sterling. "What do I need to sign?" "Right here, Ms. Vance. And here," she signed. "You can't do this," Marcus shrieked. He lunged at her, his hands clawed, aiming for her throat. But the security guard who had been waiting in the corner stepped forward and blocked him, twisting his arm behind his back. "Mr. Vance, please leave the premises," Sterling said calmly, "or I will call the police." "Maya!" Marcus wailed as he was dragged out of the room, kicking and screaming like a toddler. "Maya, I love you. Don't do this." The door clicked shut. The screaming was muffled, then gone. Silence returned to the office. "Are you okay?" Aunt Sarah asked gently, reaching out to touch Maya's arm. Maya took a deep breath. For the first time in 5 years, her chest didn't feel tight. The weight of Marcus, his ego, his debts, his cruelty, was gone. "I'm fine," she said, a smile touching her lips. "I'm finally fine." The transfer took a week. Maya was suddenly the owner of a downtown condo, a lake house, and a bank account with more zeros than she had ever seen. She quit her job at the clinic. She walked into her boss's office and handed in her resignation with a smile. She quit the freelance gigs. She deleted the apps from her phone. She moved into the condo. It was beautiful. High ceilings, light, space. It smelled like old books and lemon polish. She didn't go crazy. She didn't buy a Ferrari. She didn't buy a yacht. She paid off her student loans. She paid off her parents' mortgage. She gave Chloe a check for $50,000 to start her own bakery. She bought a new wardrobe, clothes that fit, clothes that made her feel confident. She got her hair done. She started taking French lessons. She traveled to Italy alone and ate pasta in Rome and cried tears of joy on the Ponte Vecchio, realizing she was free. But she wasn't done. She remembered the investors Marcus had talked about. She remembered his schemes. She hired a forensic accountant. She wanted to make sure Marcus hadn't used her identity for any of his loans. The accountant found something interesting. Marcus hadn't just been failing at business. He had been running a Ponzi scheme on a small scale. He had been taking money from friends and local loan sharks, promising them returns from his inheritance before he even had it. He had pre-sold shares of the estate. Now, those loan sharks were calling, and Marcus had nothing to give them. 6 months later, Maya was sitting in a cafe near her old apartment. She liked the coffee there, and she liked reminding herself of how far she had come. She was wearing a cashmere coat and reading a book. She looked out the window and saw him, Marcus. He looked terrible. He was wearing the same suit from the lawyer's office, but it was stained and wrinkled. He had lost a lot of weight. His face was gaunt, covered in patchy stubble. He was arguing with a bus driver, trying to get on without fare. He turned and saw her through the glass. Maya froze. Recognition dawned in his eyes. Then hope. Then desperation. He ran to the window. He banged on the glass with dirty hands. "Maya! Maya, help me!" People in the cafe stared. The barista reached for the phone. He looked desperate, wild. "I'm living in my car. They took everything. The loan sharks are after me. Just give me 10,000, please. I'm begging you." Maya looked at him. She saw the man who had drained her for years. She saw the man who had kicked her out into the snow. She saw the man who had tried to throw her away like trash. She didn't feel fear anymore. She didn't feel love. She slowly picked up her coffee cup. She took a sip. She looked him in the eye, held his gaze for one long second, and then she turned her head away. She opened her book. She ignored him completely. Marcus screamed something incoherent, then ran off as a police car turned the corner, likely called by the bus driver. Maya finished her coffee. She left a $20 tip for the waitress. She walked out to her car, a sensible, reliable, brand-new SUV. She drove to the lake house. Aunt Sarah was waiting there with iced tea. "How are you, dear?" Sarah asked. "I'm happy," Maya said, and she meant it. She sat on the dock, dipping her toes in the cool water. Karma hadn't just knocked on Marcus's door. It had kicked it down. And Maya? She didn't need to do a thing. She just had to survive him. The best revenge wasn't screaming. It wasn't fighting. It wasn't trying to teach him a lesson. It was living a life so full, so peaceful, and so abundant that he became nothing more than a bad memory. A ghost in a wrinkled suit, banging on the glass of a life he threw away.